So let's start. Welcome everybody again for the EOS PID Meta Resolver handover session with the Clarin use case, Clarin ERG use case. So please, Temis, you would like to start. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm Temis Zaman from GRNet. I'm participating in the development of the EOS PID Meta Resolver. And together with GWTG, we're going to present you today the first version of this service. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the first one is that we would like to welcome you all on behalf of the team. It's not only us. There are also other people working for the Meta Resolver. And the idea is that we describe the functionalities of the service, the idea of the service, and then we present you with some examples on different types of users that can use the Meta Resolver. Of course, what we want from you is comments, ideas, whatever comes in your mind, so as to have a better results for the PID Meta Resolver. If you have a question during the presentation, you are welcome to ask, and we can start the discussion during the presentation and not after it. So let's start. And every time they ask us, what is this service? What is the PID Meta Resolver? We respond with one sentence, so as everyone can understand that it is the one place to resolve all persistent identifiers. Of course, we do not resolve all the different types of persistent identifiers. We are in the first step, and we resolve some of them. We all know that there exist a lot of different types of persistent identifier, but we are on the way of adding every day more and more. So next slide, please. The previous one. And okay, now that you know the idea of the service, the other question is, what do you actually resolve? And the response is that we resolve metadata, resource, and landing pages. And we are also in discussion with other services in the FAIR core for us to resolve other different types to connect, to integrate with other FAIR core for us services. Next slide, please. Let's start, let's say, from that is usually the way we follow to explain to all different types of users the service. And we start from the beginning to explain that data generation has begun easier and cheaper, and during there is a shift, let's say, from data generation to data processing and analysis. And one of the grand challenges of it is that all of this data should be facilitated and assisted by humans and machines in data access, integration, and analysis. And the persistent identifiers can help and support this type of can support it. So when we are asked what is a persistent identifier, we use the common word that it is a long-lasting reference to a digital object, to a single file or set of files. The second question we have is in the next slide. It's what do you mean with resolution, and what are the different modes that the persistent identifier can be resolved into? Well, the first thing that we say is that persistent identifiers are not so complex, but you have two things to keep in track of it: the persistent identifier itself and what we resolve into, which is actually the landing page, the first thing that everyone shows, which is actually an HTML page, and are directly accessible and referenced in the PID and provide additional information about the referenced object. The metadata, which describes the referent object and provide detailed specification of the object based on the predefined PID schema. And it is either included in the persistent identifier or can be retrieved using the persistent identifier itself. The metadata are usually provided in JSON or XML format, but other formats are also supported. We have to say here that the metadata mode of the persistent identifier are machine actionable. The last type of mode is the actual resource, which is the referenced object. The reference of the object is normally given within the metadata, and the accessibility depends on the provider. Resources are usually provided in different formats that are selected by the communities, like PDF, document, HTML, and whatever the community needs. So we can say that the resource is machine actionable, but not by default. In the next slide, we can say now that the PID ecosystem has a number of providers. We can see here different types of providers, and that persistent identifiers are all meant to solve the same, let's say, the same problem. And there are a lot of them to choose from. The scientific community has different persistent identifiers, has employed numerous persistent identifiers like the 7 says here, with a variety of different goals. So we have multiple systems that we use in different communities to create and maintain persistent identifiers. And this is the case that we're here. Increasing use of persistent identifiers to reference all types of research results is the step forward in meeting future requirements for the fairness of the research data. And the challenges that arise from this case is that people need a way in processing the persistent identifiers, and they also need a way in integrating the different types of persistent identifiers into different research processes. So that is where also mentioned in the SRIA, it is the PID Meta Resolver, where each PID provider provides its own resolver, while a meta resolver could form a single service which can recognize different PID types and redirect to the appropriate resolver regardless of the issue. So this is the first step. Before we started, it was something that was defined in the SRIA. Do you want to proceed with this? Because it's actually the PID Meta Resolver, so I can continue with examples. What do you think? Sven? If you're talking, we cannot hear you.
I think you can continue.
Ah, okay.
No, sorry, I didn't find the unmute button. Sorry,
because you will display the presentation. That's
yeah,
okay.
Everything was hidden. So I'm back. Sorry. Yeah, so I would take over for a couple of slides here. Maybe just one addition to what Demis presented here is that the 3 definitions we gave here in the landing page, metadata and resources, is basically what we are, so say, trying to define in the context of the meta resolver. So this is not a general definition of a landing page for the whole world. It's what we try to understand and would put also as kind of a discussion base for the next period to be improved or adjusted based on the needs of the communities, basically. But that's a crucial point. So we need to understand what the meta resolver at least will be able to deliver. So what we need is a uniform interface, and that's the crucial point. A uniform interface where you can ask always the same question, or in our sense now we can ask 3 questions, like give me metadata, give me the landing page or the resource, and we have to translate this then into a resolving process at the different interfaces. And so the meta resolver is such an interface to integrate such different systems, and so it would be easier, so say, for people to integrate this interface in their own in their own workflows, and thus making all the metadata and data more machine actionable, hopefully. And I think this is one major goal we can achieve, or we do actually achieve, by the already implemented examples here. To give you a hint on the architecture point of view, what we came up with is that we have 3 core elements here in our Meta Resolver, which is on the left-hand side, the Meta Resolver backend. In the middle, we have the Resolver API, and on the right-hand, then the UI. And I will just talk briefly about the backend. I think, for the API and Web UI, I think Themis will take over, because the development of the API and Web UI is mostly done by GRNet. So the backend is, so say, relying on the handle system. So that's why we have used established software. It is therefore also globally resolvable and so also scalable. This is a crucial point. So we don't have to implement an API somewhere and consider how to scale and provide it, but we can rely here on established systems. And as you know, DOI and other handle-based systems are relying on the same software. And the final logic step is done also in the resolver backend. So asking the external resolver of the provider is done by the backend. And also, if necessary, some of these metadata post-processing, I would call, is done in the resolver backend. Of course, there is some connection to the API, for example, to understand what kind of provider is actually used and so on. That's why we have an exchange between the backend and the resolver API. And of course, the UI is then acting on the API, which we'll see later in. Yeah, the Meta Resolver is then, of course, based on what I just said, a scalable solution. Yeah, we can scale out the handle system quite easily. And of course, we have a user-friendly UI. And this is, of course, something you should test out and give us feedback on the UI, what kind of features you need and so on. But Themis will talk about this. And the API and backend is also based for high performance or 24/7 services. And both, so say, the backend could then, of course, directly integrate it into a workflow by using the API. So it's not necessary that you have to go via the UI, but you can actually use the API of the system. I think, Themis, I think it's now your task to take over. Yeah, right.
So, in this presentation, we have 3 different use cases. The first use case is about the researcher that it is new to the persistent identifier ecosystem. And what we usually get as a question is that I don't know anything about persistent identifiers. How can I learn more? So a solution for based on the Meta Resolver is to use the UI we have implemented during in this beta version. The Meta Resolver UI is a web application created using the React framework, and it provides the main interface for resolving persistent identifiers. It's actually the first client that is used to validate and test the use of the API and the backend. It actually uses the API as a backend, and it consists of 2 main views: the Resolver UI, where you can, where it has, let's say, the user can have information about how to resolve the different types of persistent identifiers. We're going to see some examples later. This can be done via this box that we have, the yellow one. While the user starts typing, he can learn more information about the type of the persistent identifiers trying to resolve. Another view that the Meta Resolver has is the list of the persistent identifiers that we currently support, and we're thinking of adding more information about the different types of persistent identifiers and the providers of the persistent identifiers. I will go now to the service.
Yeah, no problem. So we have here, so say this is the instance which Ali just linked. And if I start typing here and it says unvalid here in this yellowish box below the input part, and if I keep continue typing the term which is down there, you see it is now in the format a valid arc and so on. So if I go back and I would, of course, take the whole, and that could then ask for the landing page, I would be forwarded to the respective landing page, whichever this is here, Online Archive California. So, so the UI seems to work. And now I have, again, here too many files open. I don't see my browser anymore. So we go back, right. Or you can actually click on metadata, and then you should get, after a while, the metadata element if necessary. Okay, where have you been? So we have here I'm the researcher, and we tested the UI, and maybe Timus would like to add something which I missed talking about.
No. The idea is that we're trying to help them understand the persistent identifiers and the different types of them. So while we are typing, and because they don't know, they just get a persistent identifier, and we're trying to give them more information about the provider than these different persistent identifiers.
Yeah. So we will share the slides afterwards, and you can see here is on the slide, on the bottom, you can find other examples. For example, the Nodo identifier, which is actually DOI, or a URN NBN German from the German resolver. And what you also could see is that whenever you type in a identifier in this input field or in the search field, it also highlights one of these main elements which we discussed beforehand, either if it will provide a landing page or metadata or resource or one or more than just one of those. And if you have seen before, when I typed in ARC, it could provide landing page and metadata, but not the resource. And this is just a particular element of the ARC which we used, so it is not able to provide a resource. This is different from other identifier systems. Here's the ARC example, right? This we showed, the live demo, and then we are on the next element. And I would hand over to Timus to talk about this.
One.
No, okay. Then I can continue. So that's basically the next use case we would like to show is that I'm a researcher and I want to use some PIDs in my simulations by integrating sources from PIDs. So it's not really directly using the UI anymore, but I have a clear workflow. I'm able to write code. I'm able to write code which can request APIs or make use of APIs. And for that, we provide actually the API functionality of the Meta Resolver. The URL of this Meta Resolver is given here on the slide. So API PIDMR argo.gr. And
I can share it if you want more information about this. Now I'm with another connection. I hope everything.
You're back online
with my mobile. We can see from here that the other component is the API, the Meta Resolver API. It is built using the Quarkus framework. It is designed to resolve persistent identifiers from various types of providers. The idea is that we give information. The admin part is closed and admit permissions to view, and we have information about how to resolve persistent identifiers. We're adding also the functionality of resolving a batch of a number of persistent identifiers, not only one. Information about providers and other which types of modes of the providers we support, the identification and the validation of the persistent identifier. So if I proceed with the presentation, you are going to see that how can I use the Meta Resolver via the API if I'm someone that wants to connect my service with the API? And we can use the providers identify action that we have to identify the type of your persistent identifier. You can use the resolution, the meta resolve endpoint that resolve the persistent identifier to the selected PID mode, metadata, resource, landing page. You can also use the same functionality which supports to the resolution of a batch of persistent identifiers, a number of persistent identifiers. You can check if the persistent identifier is valid or not. And of course, you can also see the different types of providers and the different modes that we support via the meta resolver, landing page, metadata, and everything that you want. So this was the API. And the last use case is that I am a persistent identifier provider, and I want my persistent identifiers to be resolved via the meta resolver. So actually, what is this? This is the third type of that we support the providers, and we have implemented the process via a form online to add the provider of a persistent identifier. The idea is that the first step is that we keep the information about the type of the provider, a small description, the regex that's used for the identification of the persistent identifier, the different modes that we support, that the provider supports, and of course an example for everyone to see every time it tries to find out information about this type of persistent identifier. When a provider is added in the meta resolver, it is part of the list of providers also in the UI. We can have a view of the persistent identifier. And one thing that we have to mention here is that the service has integrated an AI support, federated AI support. So I can log in with my account from GRNet. So I will log in. And I will try to be, I'm a provider. I have the role of a provider. Every time someone wants to add this information, he has to log into the system for the first time, and then we will give him access as provider. And then he will have he just fills in the form to add the new provider. This is the information we add for each provider. It is not directly displayed in the meta resolver. There is a status that it is pending, and then the administrators of the meta resolver, us, Ali, and from GWG and from GRNet, are checking that everything is working properly, adds the information of the provider in the backend, and then when everything is okay, then we add, the provider is listed as one of the supported providers in the meta resolve in the UI. That were the three different use cases that were using in the meta resolver. If you have any questions, we can easily.
Because I think two endpoints should we mention it explicitly, is that so basically you can put any string to the endpoint and ask if this is actually an identifier or not. Do we recognize this as an identifier? So you can just ask for any kind of string, or you can validate. So if you know this is an arg, and just to be validated, this is actually an arg, then you can also ask the endpoint. Of course, this has also to be extended. Of course, we don't know all identifiers yet, but so we can at least give an answer on those we are already aware of. So especially this identify endpoint, I think is really good to have. So to have a basic question: is this string to be? Could this be a identifier or not? A identifier. More questions.
Maybe
Yep.
one more practical question. I saw at a certain moment in the presentation that you need an API key to call the APIs. Is that the case, or is that something for the future?
Yes, but it's for administrative actions and points.
Ah, okay. So if we just want to do a
manage,
simple call, we don't need a key yet.
Yeah.
No.
Clear.
Only if you want to create to be a provider and add the information about it.
Clear. Thanks.
All the endpoints are open, are public.
Excellent. Then we can play a bit with it. That's always nice.